All right, everyone, Joe Biden has officially lost it. He has gone completely goddamn bananas. And I don't use that hyperbolic terminology lightly because, he makes gaffes all the time anyway. If he speaks and he goes off script at all, he makes a mistake. There's a reason why he's officially spent a quarter of his entire first year in Delaware, taking more vacation days, by the way, than all predecessors from the last 4 administrations combined. To be clear, I think that Trump going golfing was a meme for some time now, wasn't it? You don't got anything on Joe Biden. Link in the description. Little video clip here. You should watch it. Behold, as Joe Biden says, I've already alienated all the Hispanic voters because of my jobs policies. I've fucked their businesses over and they're pissed, so they're, by literally the millions leaving the Democratic Party. So for the first time in many, many years, the GOP now has a registration advantage. Just be clear, they've got about 2 million extra voters above the Democrats. Talk about midterm chaos. It'll be like 1994, and if it keeps moving in this direction, the sweep will be even bigger. The House will end up supermajority Republican, and it won't be a bunch of neocons filling those slots, so Trump, DeSantis, whoever runs again in 24, they've got it golden. So be very, very careful who you support in the primaries. He's gone nuts. But I think that he harbors secret resentment against the Democratic Party. I think that there's a part of him, demented as though he is, that isn't demented, still is saying, well, I'm a strong, tough man. I was in the Senate for a while. How dare these people impugn upon me? And so he's punishing them. I think that Joe Biden might actually be our friend in one endeavor in his sad, sad career so far in his first year. And that's that he's vindictive enough to put the screws to his own party. He's like, I'm going to die anyway. I'm almost 80. I probably won't even be running in 24. Fuck them. Fuck them all. I'm going to break their toys. I'm going to, oddly enough, do what Trump tried and partially failed to do and screw the Democrats in the ass for treating me this way. Now he's trying to get the most rock-solid Democratic voting bloc to leave the Democratic Party. Black voters. Why? Again, watch this little clip. What does Biden do? He compares Martin Luther King and George Floyd and puts a positive spin on the latter, by the way, and no mention of George Floyd holding a gun to his pregnant girlfriend's stomach. If ever there was going to be like a racial stereotyping thing that could be glommed onto by people who don't like black people, it was the celebration of George Floyd. But they're erecting statues of the fucker. Well, he was a pissant. He was a drag in society, and comparing him to Martin Luther King. Oh, well, George Floyd's death was more meaningful than Martin Luther King's death. Are you goddamn nuts? And you're saying it on MLK Day. If you slip this into a half-ass speech 10 people are watching, which is the average Biden speech, by the way, in the middle of the year, like in June or something, okay, maybe the damage is limited. You did this on Martin Luther King Day. You're nuts. Now, before I go into this further, because this just boggles my goddamn mind, keep in mind down below, if you're watching this video on YouTube, there will be a pinned comment with links to other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind, I make exclusive videos every single day on those platforms that do not end up on YouTube. In the future, it'll be at least 2 exclusives a day, and sometimes possibly 3, depending on whether I have non-political content to make. That always goes on all platforms, because YouTube doesn't care about me talking about books or religion or something. They just care about medicine and certain political issues that I like to talk about, so I have to put that on other platforms. Comparing Martin Luther King and George Floyd is completely beyond the pale. Martin Luther King, okay, we're going to have a peaceful march and civil disobedience, in which you're not supposed to fight back. You just basically give up and let the police drag you away. The whole point was to cause disruption, but through nonviolent means. Now, I know what people say, well, Martin Luther King had commie tendencies. And so he did. But segregation wasn't working. Just to be clear, it wasn't separate but equal. Equal protection under the Constitution does apply. I find it very funny that there are people that don't comprehend this in the civic sense. But George Floyd was never good in life. He was a miscreant. He was a violent criminal. He was doped up to his eyeballs when he had that traffic stop in the first place. Derek Chauvin was railroaded primarily to prevent riots. Everybody under the sun goddamn knows this. In the wake of his death, what happens? Months of riots, billions of dollars in damage, dozens of deaths. The Democrats who say her name never say Sequoia Turner. who was shot by a BLM, little 8-year-old black girl shot by a BLM member, a thug, is part of a riot when her parents tried to navigate around them blocking the road. They probably shouldn't have done that. They're supposed to just sit there and let people beat out their windows and attack them and stuff. Her name never comes up, and that's not the only, unfortunately, isolated incident of violence against minors by BLM and Antifa in the wake of fentanyl Floyd being killed, or dying of an overdose, whichever way you want to construe it. But you got statues of the fucker. I'm wondering why none of the statues depict him as he really was, shooting up fentanyl and pointing a gun at people. That's the truth. The truth that's politically inconvenient to the left. It's just like the January 6th protest that devolved into a riot is cast off as an insurrection. Well, it's not. It never was an insurrection. The FBI weighed in on it bright and early. It's completely ignored. You know, the same FBI that, by the way, assassinated Martin Luther King and now celebrates MLK Day. You should have seen their post the other day and how ratioed they got on that. There's no comparison. Georgefloyd accomplished nothing. I know the way the left is trying to cast it as well, because the death of George Floyd showed us there's still systemic racism in the United States. No, there's not. He was doped up to the eyeballs, he was uncooperative, spazzing out, and he had a coronary because he was spazzing out on multiple drugs. That's not Dr. Martin Luther King now, is it? And to denigrate Martin Luther King's memory, this may be great with the under 18 id poll leftoids. It might be great for them, too young to vote generally, or incapable of voting due to felony charges. A lot of BLM members fall under that umbrella. Is it going to help you with the Martin Luther King era black community and their children who were taught nothing shy of veneration to the point of near worship of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and all of these better, greater minds of yesteryear? I don't think that it will. It's just like when Stacey Abrams in Georgia, Gesundheit, glommed onto the idea of a boycott of Georgia stores because of the voting Gesundheit law there. That backfired, didn't it? You remember that? Stacey Abrams ran unsuccessfully for governor, staged an insurrection by refusing to accept the election results. You remember that, Stacey Abrams? She's running again, by the way, the gap-toothed goofball. You remember how she silently edited her op-ed, and I think the Washington Post, if I remember correctly, afterwards, because most of the economic damage was to black businesses? You remember that one? These people aren't friends of any artificial identity community, certainly not of Americans in the more broad sense, which is what we should consider ourselves. There should be no hyphenated Americans or acronym Americans. We're Americans. It's the whole fucking point. But the leftoids don't see it that way. Biden, I think, here is pretending to be ignorant of the civic awareness of Americans. And partially, you can say, well, Joe Biden in the past has said literally bigoted things. Like, you remember his racial jungle comments? I'm wondering why No Legacy Network decided to bring that up when he was talking about Martin Luther King Day and volunteering to pack up goods or something like that. He and his wife were volunteering and doing the typical kiss the baby politician bullshit propaganda sloganeered bullshit thing. None of them bothered to talk about his past comments. What about the 94 tough on crime bill that ruined hundreds of thousands of black families by imprisoning people for lengthy prison sentences as though they were major violent felons, like George Floyd was, for simple drug possession and jaywalking and shit like that, the 3 strikes rule? And by the way, Kamala pioneered the same thing in her home state. She happens to be the VP. But she's got a different skin tone, so nobody dares to bring it up. They're afraid of being called racist or sexist. The irony is that these people are the bigots of society. They are obsessed with identity politics. And people like Biden aren't obsessed with it for ideological reasons. They're obsessed with using it for political reasons. But I'm scratching my head because even though he's the gaffe master, he's got dementia and it's getting worse. He's not very intelligent at this point, and strategically he's a goddamn loser. Even Joe Biden, I think I can't chalk this up to just him being ignorant. I have to look at this and analyze it and say, is there a possibility that Joe Biden is literally throwing bananas under his own party's feet in derision for how they're treating him? I think that that's a possibility. The possibility is above zero that that's actually the case. If so, well, I guess Biden's not that bad after all. After all, the only real damage he's done has been failing over and over and wasting everyone's time. And then the infrastructure bill, it'll cause a bump in inflation. It won't have any other effect. It's not actually going to help infrastructure. It's not going to destroy the country. He's failed at passing anything else. It's almost like he's throwing everything at the fan and seeing if something manages to make its way through unscathed, and he just keeps failing over and over. Well, it's very, very funny to watch, but, I mean, if you expect this to... I mean, the left thinks that this kind of id poll is actually helpful for voting purposes. Not for ideological. They don't care about morals or anything like that. They want to get voted for. I think it backfires. Wait till his next round of polling. I think the proof will be in the pudding. That's about all. Peace out.